Hey everyone, Bianca Lotus Theory Designs. Let's talk about how I created this look on this antique sheet music cabinet. I started by cleaning it, fixing it, sanding it, and then I added WoodUBend moldings. WoodUBend moldings are heatable wood appliques that you glue down onto your surface. From there, I added 2 coats of Dixie Belle's Caviar, which is black. I am going to be mixing 2 of Dixie Belle's fall limited time colors together, which are Merlot and Cashmere. This is going to give me a rusty pink color. Unfortunately, these colors are all sold out online. However, your local retailer may have some left over. But all is not lost. Brandy of Brushed by Brandy compiled this chart that will show you how to mix the existing Dixie Belle colors to create these fall colors. For this piece, I'm going to be doing some layering in my blending. I start with that custom pink color as well as Cashmere. I am using Dixie Belle's Scarlet brush to apply the paint to the surface. I am also using water, which is going to help me spread my paint around a little bit easier. Once I had my pink laid where I wanted it, I start to add the Cashmere in around the center of the piece. I am keeping my paint wet with water so that I can move it around easily and slightly overlapping the previous color. Once I had my 2 colors down, I add a little bit more water and reach for a clean brush, in this case Dixie Belle's Oval Medium, which is a great synthetic brush for blending. I roughly blend the 2 colors together at the seams. I'm not looking for perfection because, as I said earlier, this is just going to be my base layer. Once I had one side done, I did move on and do the other. You'll want to work in small sections so that your paint remains wet and therefore pliable as you go. While that's setting, let's move on to the next color. I am using Juniper, another of Dixie Belle's fall colors, and I'm going to lightly brush a little bit on along the base. I'm using the same technique as I did above, and if you notice carefully, I did not press my brush into the WoodUBend moldings because I wanted some of that dark caviar to show through in the details. Once I had the Juniper spread out the way that I wanted it, I once again reached for that Oval Medium brush to do a little bit of blending. To blend, I am just wetting my paint down and sweeping my brush along the seams of the paint colors. I wanted to give the front some time to dry, so I went ahead and moved on to one of the sides of the piece. I used the same technique as I did on the front, adding that pink color and then adding in the Cashmere and blending the 2 together. It's a little out of frame, but if you look closely, I do have a rag on my knee. I am using that to wipe the brush clean in between passes, therefore giving me a cleaner, crisper blend rather than muddy. Next, I begin my second layer of blending, and I start with the color Merlot, another of Dixie Belle's fall limited edition colors. I start with a small section and put a little bit of Merlot onto the surface. From there, I add in a little bit of that custom pink color and, using that designated blending brush, work the seams together. Once I had one section complete, I do begin to move on to another section. Again, it is important while blending to work in smaller sections because you do not want your paint to dry as you go. As I progress, you'll notice that I do go back in and add a little bit more Merlot or the pink color in where I feel it's needed. Watch as I finish up the second layer of blended paint on the piece. It is at this point that I decide to employ a technique that I've used over the years. I spray a very generous amount of water all over the surface, making sure to focus heavily in some spots and lighter in others. I let the water sit for about a minute and a half, and then, taking a clean rag, I gently dab where the water was, therefore revealing some of the colors underneath. This technique will also give more of a drippy paint look. Moving on, I begin to add a little bit of purple to the base on top of the Juniper, which is the green. The purple color that you see is a custom mix of aubergine and barn red. Once I had my purple where I wanted it and blended into the surface, I again reach for my water bottle, and using the same technique, I spray it down, I let the water sit for about a minute, minute and a half, and then, using a clean rag, dab away at the purple. This is revealing some of the green underneath. I repeat the process for the top portion of the piece. Almost there. I added a little bit more cashmere in a couple of the sections on the piece to make it just a little bit brighter and to give the blend a bit more of a dynamic. I also introduced a little bit more juniper on the piece, this time focusing more so on the top. Once satisfied with my blend, I begin to shade in some of the details using Coffee Bean, which is a dark brown paint by Dixie Belle. To do this, I put a very small amount onto my brush. In this case, I am using a synthetic mini, and wipe the excess off of the brush and onto a plate. I dry brush the little bit of paint that is left onto my brush into the details. I also put a focus on the edges. This is going to give my piece an aged, worn look. Once my shading was complete, I went ahead and sealed the piece in entirety using Dixie Belle's Satin Clear Coat. I allowed the clear coat to set overnight so that I could begin my next step, which is using Dixie Belle's copper gilding wax to highlight the details. I put a little bit of the gilding wax onto a chip brush and using the side of the brush, gently feather over the details. Holding my brush like so allows me to highlight the details without getting into the details and therefore leaving some of that dark coffee bean showing through. I do the same for the Baroque trim that I placed on the bottom. Last, I used my finger to apply a little bit of the gilding wax along the rim where the mirror goes. For the mirrors, I wanted to complement the piece and create an aged look on them. I started by stippling on a little bit of chemical stripper onto the back of the mirror. I didn't want to go too heavy with the stripper because I wanted to make sure that I was in control of how much of the silver I removed. I let it sit for about 2 minutes and then wiped away the residue using denatured alcohol. This will allow me to get all of the stripper off of the back before moving on to my next chemical, which will be bleach. Once I had all of the residue off, I flipped my mirror over to check on my progress. Next, I spray a little bit of bleach water onto the back of the mirror and let it sit for about 3 minutes. The bleach is going to help remove some of the silver. Using a paper towel, I dab away the bleach. I am careful not to drag my paper towel because I want a more authentic look. It is at this point that I begin to feel a lot more confident and grab a scraper to help strip away some of the silver to reveal the glass. If you use this technique, be careful not to scratch or chip the glass. I am doing this very gently. Also, in places, I am using that bleach rag to wipe away a little bit more of the silver in places. I continue this process until my mirror is where I want it to be. Once satisfied with my results, I am able to move on to my next step, which is painting the glass. To further age the mirror, I reach for Dixie Belle's bronze as well as copper patina paints. I stipple the colors on to the back of the mirror in entirety. I am using a very generous amount of paint, and I am also working quickly because these colors tend to dry fast. Once I have the entire backside of the mirror covered in patina paints, I grab a paper towel and remove some of it by dabbing away. This is going to create more of a film layer of those colors over the glass. You'll see why momentarily. For my last step, I take the mirror outside to apply a layer of gold. I am using a can of mirror effects that I picked up from my local hardware store, And I'm going to apply a total of 2 layers, letting it dry in between coats. Once dry, I install the mirror. What do you think? Cool, right? And done. Here's the reveal. What do you guys think? The one part of the process that I forgot to record was the application of the decopauge paper on the drawer. Check out one of my previous videos to see how I apply decopauge paper. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your support. If you've learned something, please use the links in the description to make your purchase for any of the products, as well as subscribe to my channel. Purchasing products using the links in my description gives me a credit and helps me to keep my little operation afloat, as well as continue to bring you free product knowledge. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.